The smell hit me first. White roses, too many of them. Imported, expensive, and packed so tight into glass vases that the air felt heavy, sweet to the point of suffocation. Then the sound. Crystal glasses tapping. Polite laughter that wasn't actually polite. It had that sharp edge. The kind people use when they're measuring each other. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows and didn't move. Navy blazer. No label. Clean lines. That was enough for me. Outside, the city stretched out in perfect lines. Traffic moving like clockwork. Inside, everything felt louder, brighter, fake. Apex Tower penthouse, top floor, private elevator, the kind of place people post about to prove they've made it. I already knew every inch of it. But nobody in that room knew that. Chloe had outdone herself. Gold accents everywhere. Custom dessert table. A giant floral arch framing her like she was royalty instead of pregnant. She stood in the center, one hand on her stomach, the other holding a champagne flute she wasn't supposed to be drinking. Her dress probably cost more than my first deployment bonus. Soft pink, custom fit, designed to scream effortless luxury. Nothing about Chloe had ever been effortless. Across from her stood Preston, tailored suit, perfect posture, smile that never reached his eyes. He was working the room like a politician, shaking hands, nodding at the right moments, letting his family do most of the judging, and they were judging. His mother glanced at me once, just once. That was enough. Her eyes dropped from my face to my blazer, then to my shoes, then back up again. Quick calculation, dismissal. I didn't react, didn't shift my weight, didn't cross my arms. Years in the army teach you one thing fast. Stillness makes people uncomfortable. I watched them instead. Watched the way Preston leaned in when someone mentioned investments. Watched Chloe laugh a little too loudly when his sister complimented the place. "My penthouse," Chloe said at one point, loud enough for everyone to hear. She said it like she owned the air in the room. Like she'd built something. I let that sit. A server passed by with a tray, sparkling water. I took one. Didn't need alcohol for this. Didn't need anything really. I had everything I needed in my pocket. The music shifted, something soft, expensive, probably curated. Chloe turned again, scanning the room. Then she saw me. Her smile tightened. Not disappeared, just adjusted. That was her tell. She excused herself from a group of women who looked identical. Same hair, same bags, same laugh. She started walking toward me, slow, controlled, like she was approaching something she didn't want to touch. Evelyn followed right behind her. Of course she did. My mother didn't even try to hide it. Her eyes already had that look. The one that said she'd made a decision before the conversation even started. I stayed where I was. Didn't meet them halfway. Chloe stopped about 3 feet in front of me. Close enough to make it personal, far enough to keep it clean. Up close I could see the makeup. Perfect, flawless, thick enough to hide stress. "Why are you standing here?" she asked. Not loud yet, just sharp. I took a sip of my water, enjoying the view. Her jaw tightened. Evelyn stepped in. "This isn't the place for you to linger," she said. That word, linger, like I was something that accidentally got in. I looked at her. Really looked. Same expression she'd used my entire life. Disappointment dressed up as concern. Chloe didn't wait. She turned slightly, making sure a few nearby guests could hear. Smart move. "Always build an audience before you strike. You're making Preston's family uncomfortable," she said. Now it was louder. Now it carried. A few heads turned. I didn't. I kept my eyes on her. "Am I?" I asked. Calm, flat. That made it worse for her. "Yes," she snapped. "Look at you." She gestured quick and dismissive. "This is a formal event." I glanced down at my blazer. Clean, pressed, neutral. "I'm dressed," I said. A couple of people nearby shifted. They could feel it now, that tension. Chloe leaned in closer and dropped the mask. "You're embarrassing me," she said low, but not low enough. There it was, not us, not family, her. Evelyn nodded immediately. "She's right, Sloane. You should have thought about how this looks." I let a second pass, then another. Silence stretches people. They start filling it with their own mistakes. Chloe stepped back, lifted her chin, and said it loud. "You're broke, Sloane." That one landed. A few gasps. Subtle, controlled. "You don't belong here." Now more people were watching. Preston turned. His family followed. "Perfect." Chloe pointed toward the door. Sharp, clear, final. "Get out of my penthouse." Evelyn didn't hesitate. She nodded like this was reasonable, like this was necessary, like I'd forced their hand. I didn't speak, didn't argue, didn't defend myself. I just reached into my pocket, slow enough to be deliberate, not slow enough to be dramatic. My fingers closed around the paper, heavy, thick, watermarked. The master deed, not a copy, not a scan. The original. I felt the edge of it under my thumb, and I smiled. Small, cold, controlled. Chloe didn't notice. She was too busy watching the room, waiting for approval, waiting for someone to validate her. I gave her exactly what she wanted. I nodded once. All right, I said. Simple, no resistance. That confused her for half a second. Then she recovered. People always move when they don't understand what they're looking at. I heard a few whispers. Who is she? Is that her sister? Why would she even come? I pressed the elevator button, waited. Behind me, the party restarted. Laughter came back first. Then music, then Chloe's voice, bright again, polished, like nothing had happened. The doors opened. I stepped inside, turned. For a second, I saw her, glass raised, smile back on. Playing the role, I held her gaze, just long enough. Then the doors closed, and the noise disappeared. Silence again, clean, controlled. I let out a slow breath, and finally took my hand out of my pocket, still holding the deed. I let her kick me out. I let her laugh with her rich friends as the elevator doors closed. And if you understand the value of staying quiet until the timing is right, hit subscribe. I kept my hand on that deed a second longer as the elevator dropped. We came from the same house, same address, same last name. That's where the similarities ended. By the time I was 22, I was deployed, not behind a desk, not in a clean office. You learn fast in that environment. You learn to track everything. You learn to expect failure points. You learn to build systems that don't collapse when pressure hits. And most importantly, you learn to stay calm when everything around you isn't. Meanwhile, back home, Chloe was building her brand. That's what she called it, a lifestyle brand. I never saw a product. Of course she did. That's what people like her do. They don't question easy wins. I turned, walked toward the elevator. No rush, no hesitation. The room parted just enough, because what my sister didn't know was that she hadn't just kicked me out of a party. She had just given the legal owner of the building the perfect excuse to initiate an immediate, merciless eviction. Have you ever been dismissed in a room where you actually held all the power and chose to say nothing? Tell me below. The numbers above the door lit up one by one, calm, predictable, controlled. Unlike my family, people always assume silence means weakness, that you're not reacting because you can't. They don't understand discipline. They don't understand planning. I learned that somewhere between sleeping on a metal cot in a supply tent and managing shipments worth more than most people's entire lives. I didn't grow up like Chloe. I was running logistics in places where mistakes got people hurt. Fuel routes, medical supply chains, equipment distribution across multiple regions. If something didn't arrive on time, people didn't just complain. They paid for it. Never saw revenue, just photos, expensive coffee, borrowed handbags, angles that made small apartments look bigger. Evelyn funded all of it. Quietly at first, then not so quietly. She has potential, Evelyn would say over the phone. I'd be sitting on a folding chair, dust in the air, satellite connection cutting in and out. What kind of potential, I asked once. She understands presentation, Evelyn said. I looked down at my boots, covered in dirt. Right, I said. Evelyn never asked about my work. Not really. She'd ask surface questions. Are you safe? Are you eating? But there was no interest behind it. No curiosity, just obligation. Then she'd shift back. Chloe just hit 10,000 followers, she said once, like it was a promotion. I remember staring at a shipment manifest while she talked. 10,000. I was tracking $10 million worth of equipment moving through 3 countries. But sure, followers. That's great, I said. It was easier that way. Chloe didn't hide it. She liked the attention, liked being the center of everything, and Evelyn built her around that. Every family call turned into a Chloe update. Her photos, her outfits, her collabs, my work got summarized in one sentence. She's still doing that army thing, like it was a hobby, like it wasn't the reason I knew how to survive chaos without losing control. I didn't argue, didn't defend it, I just worked, and I saved. Every deployment came with hazard pay, bonuses, opportunities most people don't think about. I didn't spend it, didn't upgrade my lifestyle, didn't buy status. I invested. Quietly, methodically, same way I ran supply chains. Low risk, high stability, long-term positioning, real estate. Commercial first. Warehouses, small office buildings, places that generated income without needing attention. No one claps for a well-run distribution center. That's the point. I built it piece by piece. No announcements, no social media, no conversations at family dinners, because I already knew how that would go. Evelyn would find a way to redirect it. Chloe would find a way to use it. And I wasn't interested in either. Years passed. Deployments ended. I transitioned out. Civilian life felt quiet. Too quiet at first. No constant movement, no immediate pressure, just time and assets. By then the numbers were solid, enough to scale, enough to move into bigger acquisitions. That's when Apex Tower came into play. Prime location, high-end tenants, strong long-term value. The kind of property that doesn't just hold money, it grows it. I didn't buy it under my name. That would have been sloppy. I used a blind LLC, layered ownership, clean, legal, invisible. On paper, I didn't exist in that building. That was intentional, because I knew one thing for sure. If my family ever found out what I actually had, they wouldn't see me. They'd see access, so I kept it simple. Old sedan, neutral clothes, no upgrades, no signals. Let them believe whatever they wanted, and they did. They built a whole story around me. The struggling veteran, the one who never figured it out. Evelyn leaned into it. She's always been practical, she'd say. That tone, like it was a flaw. Chloe took it further. She turned it into a personality trait. Mine, the boring one, the broke one, the one who didn't get it. I let that sit, because it gave me something more valuable than approval. It gave me invisibility. And invisible people see everything. The night Chloe announced her engagement, I was invited to dinner. Small restaurant, overpriced menu, the kind of place where presentation matters more than food. Preston was there, same suit, same smile, same controlled arrogance. He shook my hand like he was doing me a favor. "Nice to meet you," he said. I nodded. Likewise. Chloe couldn't wait. She leaned forward, eyes bright. "We got the penthouse," she said. Evelyn gasped, like she'd just heard life-changing news. "The penthouse," she repeated. "Apex Tower," Chloe said, smiling wider. "Top floor, private elevator." She said it slow. Let it land. Evelyn turned to me. "Can you believe that?" she asked. I took a sip of water. "It's a nice building," Chloe laughed. Not because it was funny, because she thought it was. "Preston made it happen," she said, placing her hand over his. There it was, the narrative, the provider, the upgrade. Preston gave a small nod, didn't correct her, didn't confirm it either, just let it exist. That told me everything I needed to know. Chloe turned back to me. "You should come by sometime," she said, then paused, looked me up and down. "Actually, you might want to wait until you level up a bit." Evelyn smiled. Not uncomfortable, not embarrassed, approving. "Chloe," she said, but there was no correction in it, just tone. I met Chloe's eyes. "Level up," I asked. She leaned back. "Work harder," she said. Simple, dismissive, final. I didn't respond. Didn't need to, because I already knew something she didn't. And I wasn't ready to use it yet. Timing matters, always. I swallowed the insult and let them think I was just a struggling veteran. It was the smartest tactical decision I ever made, because when predators think you are blind, they stop covering their tracks when they decide to rob you. I closed my office door and locked it before I sat down. Not because I was expecting anyone, because I don't work without control. The room was quiet. No TV, no music, just the low hum of my desktop running through its cycle. 2 monitors, clean desk. No clutter, everything had a place. That matters when you're dealing with numbers that can turn into problems if you miss something small. Quarterly audits weren't optional. They were routine. Every property, every account, every lease, no exceptions. I sat back in my chair and pulled up the portfolio dashboard. Warehouses first, then office units, then residential. Apex Tower came last. Not because it mattered less, because it required more attention. High-end tenants always do. I clicked into the system. Tenant ledger loaded. Names, unit numbers, payment history, all clean at first glance. Green marks, processed payments, scheduled deposits. Then I scrolled. Penthouse unit. The top line looked normal. Tenant Chloe Barrett. That didn't surprise me. She'd already told everyone it was hers. I kept reading. Payment status. My eyes stopped. Blank. Not late. Not pending. Blank. I leaned forward slightly, mouse in hand, clicked into the details. 8 months. No rent. No partial payments. No extensions filed. No flags raised. That shouldn't happen. Not in my system. Every unit had automated alerts. Miss 1 payment, it logs. Miss 2, it escalates. 8 months. That means someone interfered. I didn't react, didn't swear, didn't call anyone. I just started pulling threads. First, I checked the override logs. Every change leaves a trail. Timestamp, user ID, location. There it was, manual suppression of alerts, repeated, same user credential, management assistant level. I didn't recognize the name. That meant it wasn't random, it was intentional. I opened a second window, pulled the lease agreement, digital copy first. Everything looked standard. Tenant signature Chloe Barrett, guarantor Sloan Barrett. I stopped. Read it again. Guarantor Sloan Barrett. That wasn't possible. I don't co-sign anything. Not for family, not for anyone. I opened the document file, zoomed in on the signature. It looked like mine. Close enough to pass casual inspection. Wrong in the details. The curve on the S was off. Pressure points inconsistent. It was a copy, a forgery. I didn't feel anger. That comes later. First comes confirmation. I pulled the original submission logs. IP address, timestamp, device information. 2 entries, one from a residential network, one from a public terminal. The residential IP matched an address I knew. Evelyn's house. I leaned back in my chair. Let that sit. Mother and daughter, working together, not sloppy, but not careful enough. I kept going, pulled financial verification documents, bank statements, credit checks, everything attached to the lease. That's where it got worse. Social security number, mine, primary guarantor. They didn't just forge a signature, they used my identity. Full access, full exposure. If that lease defaulted, it wouldn't hit Chloe, it wouldn't hit Preston, it would hit me. My credit, my assets, my entire financial structure. I opened another window, ran Preston's background. Took less than 5 minutes. Public records, financial disclosures, business filings. The image didn't match the numbers at all. Multiple shell companies, declining revenue, outstanding debts, 2 recent loan defaults. He wasn't wealthy. He was leveraged, badly. That penthouse wasn't a gift, it was a cover. Chloe didn't move in as an owner, she moved in as a renter who never planned to pay. I went back to the ledger. 8 months unpaid. At that rate, the total exposure wasn't small, but the money wasn't the real problem. The structure was. They set it up to collapse. And when it did, it would land on me. Clean, legal, documented. From the outside, it would look like I co-signed a lease and failed to cover it. That's not an accident. That's planning. I sat there for a minute. No movement. No sound except the system running. This wasn't emotional. This was operational. I started building the case, downloaded every document, lease files, submission logs, IP records, cross-referenced timestamps with login activity, pulled access credentials, tracked the management assistant account, found the breach point, temporary credential reuse. That's how they got in, not hacking, access, given or stolen. Didn't matter. It was traceable. Everything is if you take the time. I opened a secure folder, stored copies, labeled clean, no shortcuts, no assumptions. Then I checked one more thing. Payment attempts. There were none. Not even fake ones. They weren't trying to maintain the illusion inside the system, only outside. That told me their plan had a timeline. Ride the image, delay the consequence, let it crash later. Far away from them. Preferably on me. I exhaled slowly. That was the moment it shifted. Not surprise, not disappointment. Clarity. They didn't just disrespect me. They didn't just use me. They tried to set me up. Legally, financially, permanently. That changes the response. I didn't pick up my phone, didn't call Evelyn, didn't text Chloe, didn't confront anyone. Because confrontation is noise. And noise gives people time to adjust. I don't give people that. I give them space. So they keep moving exactly how they planned. So they expose everything. I minimize the files. Closed the main dashboard. Left no trace of what I'd seen. Then I sat there in the quiet, thinking through options, not emotional ones, effective ones. What removes the threat? What secures the assets? What ensures it doesn't happen again? That's the framework. Always has been. I already had enough for a civil case. Enough for eviction, enough to shut it down. But that wasn't the right move. Not yet, because they weren't finished. And if I moved too early, they'd retreat, hide, adjust the story. I needed them comfortable, confident, visible. So I did nothing. On the surface. No calls, no warnings, no changes to their access. I let the system run, let the debt grow, let them keep posting, keep spending, keep pretending, because every day they stayed in that penthouse without paying. They were digging deeper, and every document that they touched, they were adding to the file. Most people would have stormed into their mother's house and screamed until their lungs gave out. But the army taught me a fundamental rule of warfare. When you find an enemy ambush in your territory, you don't make a sound. You quietly rewire their explosives. I backed up every file and shut the system down. Then I picked up my phone. Not to call Chloe, not to call Evelyn. I called Caldwell. He answered on the second ring. "Good afternoon," he said. Same calm tone he always used. "Are you alone?" I asked. A pause. "Yes." "Clear your schedule," I said. "I'm coming in." He didn't ask questions. That won't be a problem. That's why I kept him. I arrived at Apex through the service entrance. No attention, no greetings, no cameras tracking a visit. Caldwell met me in his office, suit pressed, desk clean, files already stacked. He stood when I walked in. "Ma'am." I nodded once and closed the door behind me. "Sit," I said. We both did. I slid a folder across his desk. "Open it." He did. First page the lease, second page the signature, third the guarantor line. He read fast, eyes steady, then he reached the IP logs. His expression didn't change, but his posture did. Straighter, tighter. "This is internal," he said. "Yes." "Accessed from a residential network." "Yes." He flipped another page. 8 months unpaid. "Yes." He closed the folder. "Do you want them removed immediately?" That's the standard response. Fix the problem. Eliminate the risk. I shook my head. Not yet. That got his attention. "Explain," he said. I leaned back slightly. "They forged my signature, used my social security number, suppressed alerts internally, and they've been living there rent-free while building a public image tied to the property." He nodded once. "Understood. I don't want a quiet eviction," I said. "I want exposure." He didn't hesitate. "Then we proceed differently." "Exactly." I slid a second folder across the desk. Start pulling everything I said. Original lease files, submission metadata, access logs. "I want a clean chain." He opened it. Already labeled, already structured. "Of course," he said. "And I want a full audit of the management assistant credential used for the overrides." "Already flagged," he replied. Good. He was ahead where it mattered. "I'll need legal," I said. "I have a recommendation," he said immediately. "Federal level, yes. Set it up." He picked up his phone, made one call, short, direct. "Tomorrow morning," he said, after hanging up. "Downtown office. Send me the address." He nodded. We didn't shake hands. Didn't need to. This wasn't personal. This was execution. The next morning, I sat across from a federal fraud litigator who didn't waste time. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, no small talk. He read the files in silence. 10 minutes, 15, 20, then he closed the folder. "This is clean," he said. "Explain. Forgery, identity theft, wire fraud if digital submission is involved. You have IP logs document inconsistencies and financial damage risk. That's enough to proceed." "I don't want to proceed yet." He looked at me. "Why?" "Because they're still active." He leaned back. "You want to build this case." "I want them fully committed," I said. A small pause. Then he nodded. "Understood. I also want protection," I added. "For your assets, yes." He reached for a pad. "Then we freeze everything tied to your personal identity," he said. "Accounts, credit lines, exposure points. We isolate your real holdings." "Do it," he wrote quickly. "Once we file, it becomes public," he said. "I'm aware. Then timing matters." "It does." I stood up. "So we control it," I said. He gave a slight smile. "Now you're thinking like a litigator." I didn't smile back. I was thinking like a commander. That afternoon, the freeze went into effect. Quiet, no alerts to them, no visible disruption. But every real asset I had was now locked behind layers they couldn't reach. If they tried to pull anything else, it would fail. And log. I went home, didn't change my routine, didn't call anyone, Didn't acknowledge anything. Because the next step required patience and positioning. 3 days later, Caldwell called. They've scheduled an event, he said. What kind? Private function, catered. Approximately 50 guests. I already knew. Baby shower. Yes. I stood by my kitchen counter, phone in one hand, coffee in the other. What's the budget? I asked. Approximately 15,000. I nodded. Of course it was. Image over reality, always. They've requested extended access hours, he added. And we haven't responded yet. Approve it. A pause. You're certain? Yes. They are already in violation, I know. Then why allow escalation? Because I want them comfortable, I said. I want them visible. And I want witnesses. Silence on the line for a second. Then understood. Let them have everything they ask for, I said. Staff, access, services. No resistance. Yes, ma'am, and document all of it. Already in progress. Good. That's how you build pressure without being seen. You give people room, so they expand. So they expose more surface area. That's where they break. That night I sat at my desk again, opened a new document, notice to quit an asset seizure, not a template. Custom. Every detail tied to the evidence. Forgery, identity theft, unpaid rent, financial liability, timeline, precise, no gaps, no assumptions. I wrote it clean, clear, final. Then I added the timing. Effective 72 hours after delivery, not immediate, delayed. Because impact isn't just about action. It's about when it lands. I printed it, signed it, filed it with legal, ready. All it needed was the right moment. Over the next week I watched, not directly, through systems, access logs, service requests, vendor entries, everything flowing through the building. Chloe was active, constant. Deliveries every day, decorations, catering confirmations, floral orders, white roses, of course. Social media activity spiked. Photos, stories, teasers. She was building anticipation, selling the image. Preston appeared in a few posts, always controlled, always positioned, never paying. Evelyn showed up in the background, smiling, approving, like she hadn't forged documents in her own living room. I didn't engage, didn't like, didn't comment. I let them build it, let them invite people, let them brag. Because the bigger the stage, the louder the fall. 2 days before the event, Caldwell sent final confirmation. Everything is set, he said. Good. Security will remain standard. Keep it that way. No adjustments, none. He hesitated. Understood. They didn't need to feel pressure. They needed to feel untouchable. That's when mistakes multiply. The night before the shower, I reviewed everything one last time. Evidence locked. Legal ready. Timeline set. No variables left. Just execution. They were sending out gold foil invitations bragging to the entire city about the untouchable luxury life they had built. They had absolutely no idea they were decorating their own holding. Sel and I was the one holding the master key. I watched the payment failures roll in before my phone ever rang. Small at first, a declined charge here, a delayed authorization there, nothing dramatic. Just friction. That's how freezes work when they're done right. No alarms, no obvious shutdown. Just enough resistance to force mistakes. By the third day, the pattern changed. Multiple attempts, same vendors, same cards, declined. Retried, declined again. I didn't touch anything, didn't adjust the system. I let it play out. Because panic doesn't show up all at once. It builds. And when it does, people reach for whatever they think they can control. That's when they expose themselves. My phone lit up that afternoon. Evelyn. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello. Her tone was tight, too controlled. We need to talk, she said. Not a request. About what? It's important. Everything is important when they need something. I'm working, I said. This can't wait. A pause. Then she lowered her voice. It's about your sister. Of course it was. I looked at the screen for a second, then back to my desk. I'll come by, I said. Her house hadn't changed. Same furniture, same layout, same air, comfortable on the surface, tense underneath. I walked into the kitchen. They were both there, Chloe at the table, phone in her hand, refreshing something over and over. Evelyn standing near the counter, arms crossed, watching me. I didn't sit, didn't greet, just waited. Chloe spoke first. There's an issue, she said. That was new. She didn't say problem, didn't say help. She said issue, like it was external, like it wasn't her. What kind, I asked. My cards, she said quickly. They're not going through, I nodded once. Talk to your bank, I did, she snapped. They said everything looks fine. Of course they did, because the problem wasn't the account. It was the access. Evelyn stepped in. It's probably just a glitch, she said. That word, glitch. Like 8 months of fraud could be explained by a system error. I didn't respond. Chloe leaned forward. I have vendors to pay, she said. The shower is in a week. I glanced at her phone. Catering invoice open. 5 figures. Expected. You planned it, I said. You handle it. Her eyes narrowed. This is temporary. I'm sure it is. That didn't help. It wasn't supposed to. Evelyn moved closer. This is where family steps in, she said. There it was, the shift. From explanation to expectation. I stayed still. What do you need, I asked. Direct. No emotion. Chloe hesitated. Evelyn didn't. 10,000, she said. Clean number, prepared. Cashier's check, she added. Of course, no trace back to them. No reversal, just clean money. I looked at her. You want me to cover your event? It's not like that, she said quickly. It was exactly like that. It's just until the account settles, she added. Accounts, plural. I let that sit. Chloe jumped in. It's for the baby, she said. That was new. Weaponizing timing. Not effective. I kept my tone even. You forged my signature, I said. Silence. Just for a second. Then Evelyn's face hardened. That's not what this is about. It's exactly what this is about. Chloe looked between us, confused, or pretending to be. Evelyn stepped closer, lowered her voice. We are not doing this right now. That tone, the one that shuts things down, used to work. Didn't anymore. You used my social security number, I said. Chloe froze. That wasn't part of her script. Evelyn didn't blink. You're overreacting, she said. I almost smiled. Almost. 8 months of unpaid rent, forgery, identity theft. And I was overreacting. That told me everything I needed. They weren't going to admit anything. They weren't going to adjust. They were going to push. So I let them. Evelyn straightened. And then she said it. If you don't write this check, Sloan, you are dead to this family. No hesitation. No softness. Just clean, cold pressure. Chloe didn't interrupt. Didn't disagree. She watched me, waiting. Evelyn continued. You will not be welcome at the shower. There it was, the leverage, access, approval, status, things that used to matter. I looked at both of them, really looked. One panicking, one calculating, neither understanding where they actually stood. I reached into my bag. Slow, deliberate, pulled out my checkbook, set it on the counter. Chloe leaned forward. Hope showed up fast. Evelyn relaxed just enough. They thought they'd won. Again. I opened the book, wrote the amount. 10,000, no hesitation, no correction. Then I paused, pen hovering. This part mattered. Not for them, for the record. I filled in the memo line. Clear, specific, permanent. For Chloe's fraudulent debt recovery. I tore the check out, held it for a second, then handed it over. Evelyn took it first, fast. Like it might disappear. She glanced at the amount. Didn't read the memo, didn't care. Chloe leaned over her shoulder, eyes locked on the numbers. Relief hit immediately. Thank you, she said. But it wasn't gratitude. It was confirmation that they could still control me, that I would still comply. Evelyn folded the check, already moving. We'll get this sorted, she said, like she hadn't just issued an ultimatum, like this was normal. I closed my checkbook, put it away. Of course, I said, calm, flat. They didn't notice the tone. They never did. Because they were focused on outcomes, not signals. Evelyn walked toward the door, already planning the deposit. Chloe followed, phone back in her hand. Probably texting vendors, reassuring them, keeping the illusion alive. I stayed in the kitchen for a second, alone, quiet, same room, different position. They thought this was resolution. It wasn't. It was alignment. Everything was now in place. Evidence, intent, transaction, clean, documented. Unavoidable. I picked up my keys, walked out without saying anything else. They didn't stop me, didn't need to. They believed the situation was under control. They were wrong. They snatched the check from my hand like starving wolves, thinking they had just bullied the quiet soldier into submission one last time. They didn't realize that depositing that check was the final piece of bait required to trigger a federal sting operation. I took a slow sip of black coffee and watched the access logs update in real time. No rush, no noise, just data moving across the screen. Timestamps, entry points, elevator usage, key fob activity. Apex Tower ran like a system, and systems don't lie. Day 1 started clean. The morning after the baby shower, the penthouse logs showed late movement. Guests leaving past midnight, service staff clearing out, elevator cycling more than usual, expected. Big event, high traffic. Chloe's world looked intact. On the surface. I scrolled, saw her key fob register at 9:12 a.m. Exit. Probably coffee, maybe a photo opportunity. Her online activity confirmed it. Public profile, open, always open. New post, bright lighting, clean angles, same smile. Caption, so glad I cut toxic, broke people out of my life. I read it once, didn't react, didn't comment, didn't need to. She was building her own record. Every word, every image, every claim, logged, time-stamped, public. I leaned back in my chair, let the coffee sit for a second. Bitter, clean. Day 1 passed without disruption. That was important. No early triggers, no warning signs. The system stayed quiet, because timing isn't about speed, it's about precision. Day 2 started with more activity. Deliveries, returns, multiple vendor pickups, floral arrangements being removed, catering equipment checked out. I checked the financial logs. No rent movement, no attempts, no corrections. They weren't fixing anything. They were maintaining the image. Preston appeared once. Short clip, standing in the penthouse. Normal shutdown sequence after an event. Chloe's post shifted slightly, less polished, still smiling, but tighter. She posted a story mid-afternoon, boxes in the background. Resetting after the most perfect day. Perfect. That word again. Looking out the same windows I stood by. Captioned, next chapter. I paused that frame, zoomed slightly. He looked confident, relaxed, like someone who believed the structure would hold. It wouldn't. By the end of day 2, the system was ready. Legal had confirmed. All filings accepted. All documentation processed. Everything aligned. The notice was active, 72 hours, down to the minute. I didn't go to the building, didn't need to. Control doesn't require presence. It requires visibility, and I had that. Day 3. I woke up early, same routine, same coffee, same desk, opened the dashboard. Everything was quiet. Too quiet for them. Perfect for me. At 10:03 a.m., her key fob logged an exit. Penthouse elevator, down to lobby. I checked external cameras. She was dressed up, shopping, of course. Maintaining the lifestyle until the last second. Preston wasn't with her. Neither was Evelyn. That mattered. Isolation creates cleaner reactions. The hours passed. No anomalies, no alerts. Just normal activity. Until 2:47 p.m. Key fob registered at the penthouse elevator. Return. I watched the log update. Access attempt. Pause. Then the system flagged it. Red. Access denied. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just watched. Second attempt. Same result. Third. Faster this time. Denied. I pulled up the internal camera feed. Lobby view. Chloe stood in front of the private elevator panel. Her posture had changed. Shoulders tighter. Movements sharper. She scanned the panel again. Pressed the button. Nothing. Tried the fob again. Denied. She looked around, confused, then irritated, then something else. That's how it starts. Confusion, then frustration, then realization. She pulled out her phone, dialed. I knew who. Management. Caldwell answered. I didn't need audio to know his tone. Calm, measured, controlled. She spoke fast, gesturing at the panel. He listened, didn't interrupt. Then he responded. Short, clear, final. Her body froze for a second, then exploded. Hands up, voice raised. Now people were watching. Lobby traffic slowed. Concierge alert. Security observing. She paced, turned, looked back at the elevator like it had betrayed her. Then she shouted. Even without sound, I knew the words. What do you mean denied, classic? Caldwell remained still, explaining, not apologizing. That's the difference. She wasn't hearing it. She cut him off, demanded escalation, demanded answers, demanded control. Then she said it. I could read it off her lips. I live here. No, you don't, not anymore. Her phone dropped slightly. She listened again. Longer this time. Her face changed, color drained. That's when it landed. Federal lockdown, identity theft, forgery. Words she never thought would be attached to her. She stepped back, looked around again, this time not for validation, for exits. There weren't any. She hung up, immediately dialed someone else. Preston. Seconds later he walked in. Fast, tension visible. He didn't greet anyone. Went straight to her. She spoke over him, explaining, pointing, panicking. He turned to Caldwell, tried a different approach. Lower voice, controlled tone, the reasonable man. Didn't work. Caldwell didn't shift. Didn't soften, just repeated the facts. Unit locked. Investigation active. Access revoked. Preston's posture changed. Confidence cracked. Then Evelyn arrived. Slower, but louder. She didn't ask questions. She made accusations, pointed at staff, blamed management. Raised her voice high enough to carry. Now the lobby was watching. Really watching. 3 people, dressed like they owned the place. Acting like they'd lost something. Because they had. Control. They moved together, toward the front desk, demanding, pressuring, trying to force compliance. It didn't work. Because systems don't respond to pressure, they respond to authority, and they didn't have it. Chloe turned, looked straight at the concierge, and said something sharp, demanding, final. Then she stepped back, crossed her arms, waiting for the owner, for someone to fix it, for someone to be smaller than her. She screamed at the concierge. She demanded the owner show their face. She wanted to exert her fake power to crush the corporation she thought was beneath her. She completely forgot what her sister used to do for a living. I adjusted my cuff once before I stepped out. The glass doors opened without a sound. The lobby was already loud. Chloe's voice carried across the marble floor, sharp, uncontrolled. I'm going to sue this entire building, she snapped. Her face was red, hair slightly out of place. Not the version she posted online, the real one. Preston stood next to her, jaw tight, trying to hold it together, trying to manage something he didn't understand. Evelyn was just behind them, nodding, backing every word, adding pressure, like volume could fix facts. Mr. Caldwell stood in front of them, still, hands behind his back, listening, not reacting, exactly how I expected. Then Preston's family walked in. Perfect timing, 3 of them, well-dressed, controlled, confused. They slowed when they saw the scene, looked from Chloe to Caldwell, then to the concierge, trying to figure out why a perfect life suddenly looked unstable. Chloe noticed them. That changed everything. Her tone shifted instantly, still loud, but now performative. This is unacceptable, she said, louder than necessary. We have been treated like tenants. That word, tenant. She almost caught it. Almost. Preston stepped forward. We need to speak with the owner, he said. Calm. Direct. Still trying to play control. Caldwell didn't move. You are speaking with management, he said. That's not enough, Preston replied. Of course it wasn't, because he still thought this was a negotiation. Evelyn stepped in. This is a mistake, she said. Our family has every right to be here. Every right. Interesting choice. Chloe pointed at the elevator. You locked us out of our own home. No, I didn't. I corrected a liability. I took another step forward. Heels steady against the floor, not rushed, not dramatic, just precise. Caldwell saw me first. Of course he did. He turned, straightened slightly, then stepped to the side, creating space. That's when Evelyn saw me. Relief hit her face instantly, like she'd just found an answer. Sloan, she said, moving fast toward me. Her voice changed, softer, urgent. Tell them to back off, she said. We are dealing with the owner. I didn't respond, didn't even look at her. I kept walking, straight line, no deviation. Chloe turned, saw me. For a second, confusion, then irritation, then something else, recognition, but not the right kind. What are you doing here, she asked. Still loud, still aggressive, still wrong. I stopped a few feet in front of her. Close enough, controlled distance. Caldwell stepped forward, and then he did exactly what I expected. He bowed. Deep, formal, precise. The eviction paperwork and fraud evidence have been submitted to the authorities, Madam Owner, he said. Clear, public, final. The lobby went silent, not quiet, silent, you could feel it. That moment when reality replaces assumption. Chloe didn't move, didn't blink. Preston's expression cracked. Just slightly, enough. Evelyn froze, half a step behind me, still processing, still trying to reframe what she just heard. Madam, what Chloe said. Her voice dropped, not controlled, just empty. I didn't answer her question. I stepped closer, reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope. Thick, organized, heavy, evidence has weight. I held it for a second, then pressed it against her chest. She didn't take it at first, just looked at it, like it might disappear. Open it, I said. She didn't, so I did it for her, pulled the first document out, held it up. The lease. Your signature, I said, then flipped the page. My name. Her breathing changed, shorter, faster. I pulled the next document. IP logs. Submitted from Mom's house, I said. Evelyn made a sound, not words, just reaction. I didn't look at her. Next page. Ledger. 8 months unpaid, I said. Preston stepped back. Small movement, but visible. Distance. He was already separating. I kept going. Ownership documents. Clean, official, final. I held them up, then handed them to Preston's mother. Let her read. Let her confirm. Because sometimes the most effective witness is the one they were trying to impress. Her face changed fast, from confusion to understanding to something colder, disgust. She handed the papers back without a word. Chloe's hands were shaking now, actually shaking. This isn't real, she said. It always starts there. Denial. It is, I said. Flat, no emphasis, no anger. Just fact. You forged my signature, I said. You used my social security number. You lived here without paying. Each sentence landed. Clean, separate, no overlap. She tried to speak. Couldn't. Preston didn't step in. Didn't defend. Didn't argue. He was done. Evelyn finally moved. Sloan, this is a misunderstanding, she said. Her voice broke. First time, we can fix this. No, you can't. I turned to her, finally. You told me I was broke, I said. Calm, you told me I didn't belong. Her eyes filled. Fast. Too late. I looked back at Chloe, still frozen, still holding the envelope. You're right, I said. I don't belong in your version of reality. A sound cut through the silence. Distant at first, then closer, sirens, multiple, approaching. The lobby didn't move. No one spoke. No one left, because everyone knew this wasn't over. It was ending. The sound of my sister gasping for air as her fake empire crumbled was the only noise in the silent lobby. But the words I said to my mother as the police sirens approached were the final nail in the coffin. I didn't take my eyes off her. Not when the sirens got louder. Not when the doors opened. Not when everything she built started falling apart in real time. Chloe's knees gave out first. No warning, no attempt to catch herself. She just dropped, right there on the marble floor. The sound echoed, sharp, final, her hands still clutching the envelope, papers slipping out, scattering, evidence spreading across the floor like it belonged there. Preston didn't reach for her. He stepped back. Clean, immediate, distance again. His mother didn't hesitate. We're done, she said. Clear, controlled, not loud. Didn't need to be. That kind of voice doesn't argue. It decides. Preston looked at her, then at Chloe, then back at his mother. That was it. No speech, no defense, no loyalty. He straightened his jacket, turned, walked out with them, just like that. Engagement over, future gone, no hesitation. Chloe saw it, even from the floor, even through whatever shock she was in. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. That's what real loss looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, just empty. Evelyn broke next. Not quietly, not controlled. She moved toward me fast. Too fast. Hands out, voice shaking. Sloan, please, she said. This is a misunderstanding. No, it wasn't. You need to tell them, she said. Tell them it's a family issue. Family. Now it mattered. Now it was a shield. I didn't move, didn't step back, didn't step forward. I just looked at her. Really looked. For the first time in a long time. No filters, no roles. Just her. You used my identity, I said. Her face twisted. That's not what this is, she said. It was exactly what it was. You forged documents, I continued. We didn't mean. You meant it, I said. Flat, final. That stopped her. For a second. Then she tried again. We can fix this, she said. We can pay it back. No, you can't fix intent. You can't undo decisions. You just deal with the consequences. The police walked in. 2 officers first, then more, calm, professional, not rushed, because they already knew what they were walking into. Caldwell handed over the file, clean, organized, complete. They didn't question it, didn't debate it. They just moved. Chloe was still on the floor, breathing uneven, hands shaking. One of the officers stepped toward her. "Ma'am, we need you to stand up." She didn't respond, didn't process. Evelyn turned to me again, desperate now. "Sloan, say something," she begged. "Tell them it's a mistake." I held her gaze, cold, clear. "You told me I was broke and didn't belong in your family." "Mom," I said. Her face collapsed. "Completely, you got your wish. No anger, no volume, just truth. That's what made it land." The officers moved in. One helped Chloe up. She resisted, weak, uncoordinated. "I live here," she said again, not strong, not convincing, just reflex. No one answered, because it didn't matter anymore. Evelyn started yelling, louder, more frantic. "This is wrong," she said. "You can't do this." They could. And they did. Corporate security stepped in. Clean suits, neutral expressions. They didn't grab. They guided, firm, controlled. No room for resistance. Chloe started screaming, high, sharp, unstable. Evelyn joined her. 2 voices, same panic, different tones. They were escorted across the lobby, past the same people who had watched them arrive, past the same desk where they demanded control, out the same doors they thought they owned. Police cruisers waited outside, lights on, engines running, no drama, just process. They were placed in the back, doors closed, and just like that, they were gone. The lobby stayed quiet. No applause, no comments, just people processing what they had seen. I didn't stay, didn't need to. I turned, walked back toward the elevators, same pace, same control. The system had done exactly what it was designed to do. 6 months later, everything was finalized. Federal charges, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, clean case, no gaps, no defenses that held. Chloe and Evelyn didn't have leverage anymore, didn't have image, didn't have protection. They had records, charges, and consequences. Their accounts were empty, assets gone, everything tied to the fraud traced and seized. The lifestyle disappeared faster than it was built. I got letters, at first every week, then every few days, handwritten, emotional, apologetic, desperate. I didn't open most of them, didn't respond to any, because closure doesn't come from words, it comes from distance. And I had that now, complete, clean, final. I stood on the balcony of the penthouse, the same one, different position, real one, espresso in hand, strong, balanced. The city was quiet, early morning, sun just coming up, light hitting the buildings, clear lines, no noise, no chaos, no performance, just space and control. They kicked me out because they thought my worth was tied to my bank account and they assumed mine was empty. They learned the hard way that a soldier's silence isn't submission. It's a countdown. Blood might make you related, but forgery makes you a felon. And my house has never been more peaceful. I didn't always understand the power of staying quiet. When I was younger, I thought silence meant losing. I thought if you didn't defend yourself, people would decide who you were. And once they decided, that was it. That belief came from my family. In that house, the loudest person controlled the story. Chloe talked first, talked fast, and talked over everyone. Evelyn backed her every time. It didn't matter what actually happened. What mattered was what they said happened. For a long time, I tried to keep up. I argued, I explained, I corrected. It didn't work. Because I was trying to win in a system that wasn't built on truth. It was built on control. So I stopped. Not because I gave up, because I started paying attention. That shift didn't happen all at once. It happened over time. Deployment after deployment. Situation after situation where talking too much made things worse. In the Army, silence is a tool. You don't announce what you know. You don't react to every move. You observe. You wait. You let patterns reveal themselves. The person who talks the most usually knows the least. The person who reacts the fastest usually loses control first. I learned to slow everything down, to watch how people moved when they thought no one was paying attention, to notice what changed when pressure showed up. That's how you understand intent. And once you understand intent, you don't need noise, you need timing. That's the part most people miss. Silence is not passive. It's not hiding. It's not weakness. It's positioning. When Chloe called me broke in that room, I didn't correct her. I didn't list my assets. I didn't defend my decisions. Because none of that would have mattered. In that moment, she wasn't looking for truth. She was looking for validation. And the room was ready to give it to her. If I had argued, I would have fed the situation. If I had exposed everything, I would have given them time to adjust. Instead, I gave them nothing. And that forced them to continue exactly as they were. Confident, careless, predictable. That's what allowed everything else to work. People underestimate the value of being underestimated. It gives you space. It removes expectations. It lets people show you exactly how far they're willing to go. And most of the time, they go too far. That's where the real information is. A lot of people watching this are probably in a similar position. You're the one who gets overlooked. The one who doesn't make a scene. The one who gets labeled as quiet or boring or not ambitious enough. And it gets frustrating, because you know that label isn't accurate. But here's the thing, you don't need to correct it immediately. You don't need to prove anything on their timeline. Because most people don't change their opinion based on facts. They change it based on outcomes, and outcomes take time. If I had tried to fix how my family saw me, I would have stayed stuck in their system. Arguing over perception, defending things that didn't need defending. Instead, I stepped outside of it. I built something separate, quietly, consistently, without needing them to understand it. That's what gave me leverage later. Not words, not explanations, structure. The ability to act without asking for permission. The ability to make decisions that didn't depend on their approval. That's what silence creates if you use it correctly. It creates independence. It gives you control over when and how things unfold. But there's a difference between silence and avoidance. Silence is intentional. Avoidance is fear. I wasn't avoiding my family. I was studying them. I wasn't ignoring the problem. I was letting it develop into something that could be handled properly. That's why timing matters. If you move too early, you expose your position. If you react emotionally, you lose clarity. If you try to fix everything at once, you miss what's actually important. Silence gives you space to think, to plan, to decide what outcome you actually want, not just what feels good in the moment, because reacting might feel satisfying, but control is what creates results. Another thing people misunderstand is this. Silence doesn't mean you never speak. It means you choose when your words matter. When I finally spoke in that lobby, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't explain beyond what was necessary, because at that point, the situation spoke for itself. The evidence was there. The structure was there. The outcome was already in motion. That's when silence ends, not when you're frustrated, not when you feel disrespected, when you're ready, when your position is secure, when your words don't need to convince anyone. They just need to confirm what's already happening. If you take anything from this, let it be this. You don't need to respond to every slight. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. And you definitely don't need to prove your value to people who benefit from seeing you as less. Let them think what they want. Let them underestimate you. Let them move without realizing what they're doing. Because when people think you're not a threat, they stop protecting themselves. And that's when you learn everything you need to know. Silence is not submission. It's preparation. It's control. And if you use it right, it gives you the advantage before anyone else even realizes there's a game being played. I stopped answering her calls the same way I stopped signing anything I didn't control. Quietly, consistently, no announcement. That's the part people don't like to hear. They think boundaries are something you explain, something you negotiate, something you soften so the other person doesn't feel bad. That's not a boundary. That's permission. For most of my life, I confused the two. I thought being reasonable meant giving people access. I thought being family meant you kept the door open, no matter how many times someone walked through it without asking. That belief cost me time. It almost cost me a lot more than that. Because access is not a feeling, it's a structure. It's who can reach you, influence you, and use your resources. Time, money, attention, identity. Those aren't abstract things. They're assets. And if you don't control access to them, someone else will. Chloe didn't end up using my name by accident. Evelyn didn't end up in my financial records because of a misunderstanding. They had access, too much of it, and they used it exactly the way people use something they don't respect, without limits. That's when it clicked for me. This wasn't about hurt feelings. This was about risk management. In the army, if a route gets compromised, you don't sit down and talk to it. You don't ask it to behave differently. You shut it down, you reroute, you secure the system so it doesn't happen again. Same principle, different environment. People want boundaries to feel fair, balanced, mutual. That's not how it works when the other side is already taking advantage. Fair only exists when both sides respect the same rules. If they don't, then what you have isn't a relationship. It's exposure. And exposure turns into damage if you let it stay open. I didn't cut my family off because I was angry. I cut them off because they were a liability. That's not cold. That's accurate. There's a difference. You can care about someone and still recognize they're not safe to keep close. You can understand why someone behaves the way they do and still decide not to be part of it. Those two things can exist at the same time. Most people don't separate them. They think if they set a boundary, they're being harsh. If they walk away, they're being disloyal. If they protect themselves, they're overreacting. That thinking keeps you in place. It keeps you available. It keeps you open to the same behavior over and over again. I used to explain myself, every decision, every limit. I justify it, soften it, try to make it easier for them to accept. That never worked. Because people who benefit from having access to you don't want to understand your boundaries. They want to get around them. So I stopped explaining. I stopped negotiating. I stopped giving reasons that could be argued with. I just changed the structure. No access to my accounts. No signatures without direct control. No involvement in anything that could tie back to me legally or financially. Simple, clear, enforced. They didn't like it. Of course they didn't. People rarely like losing access to something they've been using. But that reaction doesn't mean your boundary is wrong. It means it's working. Another thing people miss is consistency. A boundary you enforce once isn't a boundary. It's a suggestion. If you say no one day and yes the next, you're training people to keep pushing, to wait you out. That's another hard truth. Not every relationship needs to be repaired. Some need to end. Not dramatically, not publicly, just completely. You don't owe anyone continued access to your life just because they've been in it before. Time doesn't create entitlement, behavior does. And when the behavior crosses a line that puts you at risk, the response has to be clear. Remove access, secure your position. And don't look back just because it feels uncomfortable. Because discomfort is temporary, damage isn't. If you're watching this and you're dealing with someone who keeps crossing your limits, ask yourself one question. If this person wasn't related to me, would I still allow this? If the answer is no, then the situation is already clear. You're not maintaining a relationship. You're maintaining exposure. You just do it. I set the cup down on the counter and watched the city wake up. Same view, same building, different reality. That's the part people don't talk about. What happens after everything ends? After the confrontation, after the exposure, after the part that looks like victory, because that moment is loud. It feels final, but it's not the end. It's just a shift. For a while, things were quiet. No calls, no messages that mattered. Just space. And if you're not used to it, that space feels strange. You spend so much time dealing with noise that when it's gone, you don't know what to do with the silence. At first, I kept checking, not for them, for movement, for anything that needed a response. Old habits. Operational thinking doesn't just turn off, but there was nothing. The system was stable, everything was secure. So I stopped looking. That's when I realized something. The goal was never to win against them. The goal was to remove the situation entirely. That's a different mindset. Winning keeps you connected to the problem. Removing it gives you distance. And distance gives you control. A lot of people get stuck right there. They go through something difficult. They finally stand up for themselves. And then they stay focused on the people who caused the problem. They replay conversations. They think about what they should have said. They wait for some kind of acknowledgement. That's a trap. Because it keeps your attention tied to something that no longer deserves it. Then I simplified. Not my assets. My life. I removed anything that didn't serve a purpose. Unnecessary obligations. Conversations that went nowhere. People who only showed up when they needed something. Who benefits from your attention? And once you see it clearly, you can't ignore it anymore. That's where real change happens. Not in the big moment. In the small decisions that follow. It's knowing your decisions don't need approval to be valid. That's what I built. Not a lifestyle, a system. One that runs without unnecessary input. One that doesn't collapse when someone tries to interfere. One that protects what matters without needing constant attention. That's the difference between reacting and designing. Reacting solves immediate problems, designing prevents them. If you've been through something similar, you know how easy it is to stay in reaction mode, always ready for the next issue, always expecting something else to go wrong. That mindset keeps you alert, but it also keeps you tired. At some point, you have to shift from defense to control. That means setting things up so you don't have to keep fighting the same battles. It means building distance into your life. That's the goal, not just closure, freedom from the need for closure. If you're watching this and you're still dealing with the aftermath of something like this, don't rush it. Don't try to force a clean ending. Focus on what you can control, your systems, your access, your decisions. Everything else will follow, because once your structure is solid, outside noise doesn't carry the same weight. It doesn't reach you the same way. And eventually it stops mattering at all. That's when you know you're done, not when everything is fixed. When it no longer needs your attention. If this story gave you something useful, not just entertainment, but a different way to look at your own situation, then take that and apply it, because the next one might hit closer to home than you expect. To apply pressure until you give in. Consistency removes that option. It makes your response predictable. And predictability in this context creates stability. After everything happened, I didn't go back and reopen communication. Not because I was trying to punish them, because the structure had already changed. There was no version of that relationship that didn't involve risk, so I didn't rebuild it. I moved forward without it. And exposure always comes with a cost. Boundaries are not about how you feel. They're about what you allow. And once you understand that, you stop asking for permission to protect yourself. I didn't need Chloe to understand what she did. I didn't need Evelyn to apologize in a way that made sense, because none of that would change the outcome. The outcome was already decided. What mattered was what I did next. So I focused on structure. Same as always, I reviewed everything: accounts, properties, access points, made sure there were no loose ends, no remaining connections, no hidden risks. That part is harder than it sounds, because it forces you to look at patterns, not just one situation, but all of them. Where your time goes, where your energy goes. I didn't upgrade everything just because I could. Didn't change how I dressed. Didn't start proving anything to anyone, because that would have been another version of the same problem. Seeking validation, just from a different group. That's not freedom. That's dependency with better packaging. Real stability is internal. It's knowing your position doesn't change based on who's looking at you, not just physically, structurally, financially, emotionally. So when something happens, it doesn't reach you the same way. That's what people miss when they talk about moving on. It's not about forgetting. It's about building something that doesn't depend on the past. I don't wake up thinking about what happened anymore, not because it wasn't significant, because it's no longer relevant to how I operate, because information without action doesn't change anything. And if you want more stories like this, stories that break things down so you can actually use them, make sure you subscribe.